So this is lesson number 59 in Algebra 1, rearranging before substitution. Okay, so at this point with our substitution, what we've done is we've had two equations, and we had the little braces on one side, and we had things like 2x plus 3y equals 5, and x equals 2y plus 3. Alright, and what happened here is we had one of these equations set to a variable so that we could say x equals 2y plus 3. So when we look at this first equation, wherever we see an x, we can substitute 2y plus 3 in because it equals x. So when we put 2y plus 3 in here, now we have 2 times 2y plus 3, and then we continue on with the problem. Now what do we have? We have one variable, y, and one equation, and we can solve for y. And once we solve for y, we can take that answer, let's say that y is 12, and we can put it here, and then 2 times 12 is 24, plus 3 is 27, and that equals x. So we just found the answer to both the x and the y. Alright, well this lesson is giving us the same idea, substitution, but what happens when our second equation is not written this way? Let's say, for example, we have x minus 2y equals negative 1, and for our second equation we have 2x minus 3y equals 4. Alright, notice that neither one of these equations have x or y equal to something like this. This has just got the x all by itself. Over here we don't have that being the case. So what this lesson has to do with is taking one of these equations and rearranging the numbers so that one of the variables is alone on one side of the equal sign so that we can substitute 2y plus 3 in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this one here, and we're going to say, okay, which of these variables is the simplest? Ideally, we're looking for the variable that has no coefficient, no number in front of it. So this one right here would be it. So we're going to take that equation and get everything away from the x and move it to the other side. So my x minus 2y equals negative 1. If I add 2y to both sides, I get x equal, and that goes away, 2y minus 1. Now it looks very similar to that. We've got the variable all by itself. Alright, so let's write what we have. My first equation, has now been changed to x equals 2y minus 1. My second equation we didn't do anything to, so we'll leave that alone. So there's my new system. So all I did is took that first equation and rearranged it so that now whenever I see an x in the second equation, I can put this in its place, and look what happens. There's where the x was. I get one equation with one variable, a y. Now I can solve it. Distribute. I can bring my 3y and my 4y together. 4y minus 3y is 1y. I can add 2. And my y then equals 6. Okay, now I can take that y equals 6 all the way back up here to one of those equations. Doesn't really matter which one. I usually pick the simplest one, and then I can go ahead and substitute. So I'm going to do that over here on the bottom left. So do it in red here. So I've got x minus 2 times 6 equals negative 1. So see what I did? I took my y equals 6 and put it in here. I substituted it. So now I only have one variable and I can solve. X minus 12 equals negative 1. So I'm going to add 12, and my x equals 11. So I found the answer to both of my variables, my x and my y. My x is 11 and my y is 6. Okay, so not much different than what we did earlier. It's just sometimes our equation's going to be written in a way that makes it a little bit more difficult to solve these. Okay, clean page, and let's do another example here. 2x minus y equals 10, and 4x minus 3y equals 16. Alright, so what I'm looking for is the equation with a variable that doesn't have a number in front of it. And in this case, it's that one right there. So that's the one I'm going to work on. So I am going to, well, let's just go ahead and rewrite it. I'm trying to get that y by itself. So because it's negative y and I want it to be positive, I'm going to add my y to both sides, and then that gets rid of this one, and it gives me 10 plus y. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of the 10 by subtracting 10 from both sides, and I get 2x minus 10 equals y. So now I just rearranged this equation here, and so let's go ahead and rewrite it. 2x minus 10 equals y, and we'll rewrite this one. Okay, so now that I know whenever I see a y I can put a 2x minus 10 in its place, I'm going to take my bottom equation and do that. So instead of y, I'm going to put 2x minus 10 in its place. I'm going to distribute that 3. Negative times a negative is a positive. I'm going to combine these. I'm going to subtract 30. So I get negative 2x, and those go away. 16 minus 30 is negative 14. Divide by negative 2, and x equals negative over negative is a positive. X equals 7. Alright, so now that I found that, I can put that negative 7 in for either one of these problems, but I usually pick the easiest one. So I just replace the x with the 7. So 14 minus y equals 10, and I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides. And that goes away. Negative y equals negative 4. Alright, one of the things you got to remember, if your y is negative, if your variable is negative, you can change it to positive by changing all of the signs in the entire problem. So in this case there's only one other number, so I can just change that to 4. So when x is 7, y is 4. So that ends up being your answer for that second example. Alright, let's do one more, and then we'll be done with this lesson. And it is example 59.3. And I have 4x minus 2y equals 38, and then I have 2x plus y equals 25. So again, that's the simplest one. It's the one that has a letter with no number in front of it, so that's the one I'm going to use. So let's go ahead and get that y by itself by subtracting 2x from both sides, and that gives me y equals 25 minus 2x, or you could write it as y equals negative 2x plus 25. It doesn't really matter which one, as long as you keep your signs the same. You usually put the x first, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so this is a rewriting of this second equation right here. Okay, so I'm going to right above it put my first equation in blue. So I had 4x minus 2y equals 38. So now what I'm going to do is whenever I see a y in this first equation, I'm going to put negative 2x plus 25 in its place. So go ahead and write that, 4x minus 2, and then instead of a y, I'm going to put negative 2x plus 25, and then that equals 38. Okay, so I'm going to do distributive. That's going to be a 4x, negative 2 times a negative 2x is positive, and then this will be negative 50 because negative 2 times a positive 25. Okay, and I'm going to add those. And so that goes away, minus 50 equals 38. I'm going to add 50 to both sides. I'm still trying to get rid of everything except the x. Now I've got 8x, and those go away, equals 88. I'm going to divide by 8, and I get x equals 11. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put it in one of these equations. It doesn't matter which one, but I usually pick the easiest one, because this one does not have a number in front of the y, and the one above it does, so there's just more work to do here. So I'm going to pick that one. So I've got 2, and instead of x, I'm going to put my 11 that I found right here, plus y equals 25. So 22 plus y equals 25. Subtract 22 from both sides, and y equals 3. So my answer then is going to be my first number is my x, my second number is my y, and I'm done. So just use substitution in order to find out what my x is and what my y is. So that's it for lesson 59.